I wasn't supposed to be here, but here I am, living proof that sometimes the impossible happens. I'm Mary Burrell, a hospice survivor who found purpose in the fight and a voice in the struggle. This podcast is my way of keeping it real, sharing raw, honest conversation about survival, hope, and what it really takes to rebuild your life when you get that second chance. Whether you're navigating your own health battle, caregiving for someone you love, or just need a reminder that you're not alone, this is a space where we turn struggle into strength and stories into something powerful. Because a second chance isn't just about survival, it's about stepping into your purpose with everything you've got. Podcast is more than just conversations. It's a testament to survival, resilience, and the reality of rebuilding after a second chance. It's about navigating health challenges, the weight of caregiving, and the power of community. Through storytelling, we connect through advocacy. We raise awareness, especially for tricuspid valve health and women's heart valve health. And through community, we create a space where no one feels alone in their journey. You'll hear solo episodes where I lay it all out, alongside powerful interviews with patients, caregivers, and advocates who walk this path. Together, we're breaking the silence, shattering misconceptions, and making sure no one faces the journey alone. This podcast speaks to women 20 to 65 and older, caregivers, hospice survivors, and patient advocates facing heart valve challenges, caregiving, and the journey of resilience. Health conscious individuals and medical professionals drawn to patient stories, advocacy, and groundbreaking therapies like the Evoke. Heart valve health, especially for women, is more critical than ever, yet too many remain unaware of key risks like tricuspid valve disease, despite cardiovascular disease being the leading cause of death for women in the U.S. This podcast meets the urgent need for awareness, advocacy, and real patient stories, filling a gap where women's heart valve health and rare conditions are often overlooked. With over 80% of podcast listeners seeking authentic, relatable content, now is the time to create a space that educates, inspires, and connects women navigating heart valve health challenges and caregiving. The pilot episode, Hope Starts Here, Four Voices, One Mission, kicks us off with the medical breakthroughs, advocacy, and caregiving, showing how innovation, support, and resilience can transform the patient experience. Future episodes will explore the raw realities of hospice, life after the delicate balance of caregiving, while also being a patient navigating clinical trials and embracing medical innovations. Through advocacy and education, this podcast empowers listeners with knowledge and connection. Each 15-minute episode delivers compelling stories, heartfelt interviews, and actionable insights, creating a space for inspiration, resilience, and real conversations. By sharing raw personal stories with a focus on tricuspid valve awareness, a condition rarely highlighted in mainstream media, this podcast creates a space for real conversations about life diagnoses, caregiving, and medical breakthroughs. As both a survivor and a caregiver, I bring a firsthand perspective that's both deeply personal and universally relatable. This podcast goes beyond storytelling. It builds community by offering actionable insights, collaborating with advocacy groups, and amplifying listener voices to create a real connection and inspire hope. I'm looking to partner with sponsors, advocacy groups, and organizations passionate about heart valve health, caregiving, and patient advocacy. Through sponsorships, guest appearances, and co branded campaigns, we can work together to raise awareness and make a real impact. To support the podcast, I will incorporate sponsored content, ads, and listeners' contributions through platforms like Patreon. Down the line, I hope to introduce merchandise that strengthens our community and sustains this mission. More than just a podcast, this is a space for all of us where listeners can share stories, ask questions, and engage with experts. It's about building supportive community that lifts each other up. Hope starts here. Four Voices, One Mission is just the beginning. Follow the podcast on YouTube and share it with someone who needs a little hope and inspiration. Let's build this community together. You can reach me via email info@maryburrell.com. My website's at www.maryburrell.com. And you can reach me with social media on Instagram and Facebook as Second Chances, as Mrs. Avocado, or on LinkedIn as Mary Burrell. Hope isn't something we wait for, it's something we create. Tune in into the pilot episode and hear how four voices came together with one mission to inspire, connect, and prove that even in the hardest times, hope is always within reach. You've just stepped into a space where real conversations about heart valve health, resilience, and advocacy comes to life. This is Heart to Heart Talk with Mary Burrell, where we speak from the heart for the heart. I'm Mary Burrell, hospice survivor, patient advocate, and heart valve warrior on a mission to amplify voices, share untold stories, and empower you to take control of your heart health. Because when it comes to your heart, knowledge isn't just power, it's survival. So grab a seat, open your heart, and let's dive in. Because every heartbeat has a story, and it's time to tell yours. Welcome to Heart Talk with Mary Burrell. This podcast is about heart to heart conversations and sharing the real stories behind heart valve disease, education, and innovation. Stories that inspire us, challenge us, and celebrate the incredible people behind making a difference. What's a story without the people who've been there every step of the way? In this episode, I'm sitting down with Louis Burrell, my son and caregiver. This is a raw and real look at what it means to walk into the unknown with courage, love, and a whole lot of heart. Pull up a chair and join us. I'm so happy to have Louis here with us today. Our family calls him LB, and LB has always been my hero. Growing up watching me struggle with illness, he learned early on what it means to care. So when I was in hospice, he didn't just stand by, he fought for and with me every single day. LB made sure that I was heard, comforted, and treated with dignity that I deserved. His practical help, honest love, and relentless support reminded me that even the hardest moments are made easier when you have family by your side. Hello and welcome, LB. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to finally do this.
Great. We're just going to jump right into it, okay?
Yeah,
Growing up with a parent battling life threatening illness isn't something most kids experience. What was the hardest part of that for you? And what do you wish people understood about being in your shoes?
that's a good question. I was looking at this and playing back throughout the years, the memories that I had both as a younger kid and as I got into kind of adolescent teenage age. And then on to adulthood. And I think some of the hardest parts that I was kind of thinking back on were as a kid, when you have parents that are battling, a life-threatening illness or something like cancer. I think for kids, sometimes it's very hard to process it when you don't understand everything that's happening in the moment. And something that I can recognize in myself is that throughout your journey and throughout what you've been through, there were absolutely times where you and dad, I think, tried to explain what was happening in the best terms that you could. Dealing with medical issues, unless you're a doctor or you have a really keen understanding of the medical issue at hand, it can be hard to explain that to someone else. And if you add the layer of trying to explain that to a child, you can see the complexity involved. So one of the hardest parts was just taking what I'm told. Mom is sick. Well, what does that mean? Oh, it's mom's heart. a kid can understand that at a very baseline level. But then you see certain situations. You see mom go to the hospital and she's feeling unwell, and trying to relate what you're seeing back to the explanation that you're given. And then I think the other thing that I thought of is just how hard it is to see a parent that you love, that you look up to, that you cherish, obviously going through a hard time. I can remember very vividly times where, I would go off to school and it would be a normal day. And then as I'm coming home from school, you get the news that mom's not doing well and she's being hospitalized. So I think for a lot of kids, most kids, they have a normal life, their parents are involved. But when you have something like a serious medical incident or a serious medical disease, navigating that, trying to understand what's happening, and then being just worried for your parent, wondering what the outcome may be or what does this mean for our family, is something that I think would be hard on any kid, let alone a child that has had this happen, for a number of years. It's not one isolated medical incident, it's years of trying to process and understand.
All right. You said that so eloquently. I appreciate your thoughts with that, LB. Moving on to my second question for you. Being part of a family that revolves around caregiving, you've had to step up in ways most people your age haven't. How has that shaped you who you are today? And is there something you do differently because of it?
That's an interesting question because when you're a kid, you're still forming, you're still learning, you're kind of picking up how the world works. And as an adult, when you think back, you kind of have all that life lesson and experience to apply to it. But I think how it's helped shape me is that growing up, when you have a parent that's sick, in some ways you're a caregiver, in other ways you're still a child. I think one of the things that I've recognized myself is, and one of the things that I've was put into, kind of trained for, but that I've also kind of aspired, is just to be a helper, right? In our world, in the insanity, of how life is, sometimes you have to find where your place is. And I think I recognized early on that being a helper, being a leader, being proactive about certain things, is a great way to contribute. And when you have a situation where you've got a family and mom is sick and dad is the primary caregiver, there are certain things that you just have to step up to do. And being younger, my sister and I, something that we often did was trying to do the little things right. As a kid, parents always ask kids to clean their room 10 times or to get good grades. And I think something that I recognized in my younger years was trying not to create problems or trying not to take energy away from the situation that is caring for mom. And that translates in adult life, right? I tend to look at myself as being someone that wants to be proactive in helping others when you see a need. If you have the ability, the means, the time, the heart, the energy to help that situation or help that person, you should do that. And I think, I'm fortunate, despite how much, um, trauma and how hard this has been, is to be someone that, and I've learned that at a young age. You learn to help out where you can, in ways you learn how to stay out of the way. And so those things, although they have, negative feelings and emotions attached, they become very helpful in adulthood because you grow up learning there are people that need your help. There are people that need a hand up, or they need a heart to lean on. And so I think that that's helped me in my adult life and just how I treat people in my life and the relationships that I hold.
I see it in your adult life, um, that part of it for you. And it warms my heart because you do have a very giving heart. I love you, LB.
Love you too, mother.
So my last question for you is, you've seen me at my worst, fighting for my life, but also in moments of my strength. Was there a specific moment when you truly believed that I was going to pull through? And what gave you that confidence?
I mean, there's a couple of moments, but to get to that, I have to go back, right? One of the things that stands out from my childhood was, I was probably in fourth or fifth grade. And I remember that you weren't doing well. And I remember dad saying, "Oh, mom might have to go to the hospital." And that was always kind of, we were used to it by that point. It wasn't something that was shocking or traumatic. It just is what it was. But I remember going to school and coming home and you had been hospitalized. And I remember talking with dad and he was saying, mom's not doing well. We're going to go to the hospital and visit her. And we actually wrote you cards because the way that the doctors were speaking, it sounded like you weren't going to make it. And so I realized in that moment how severe this was, how serious this was. And I bring that moment up to draw attention toward the exact opposite situations where you could tell, or we were learning that although you needed medical care and although it was still very serious, a page was turning. And I think one of the moments of realizing that was when you found the heart study. There's been medical events over time that you have been involved in. There's been medical appointments over time that I'm aware that you've participated in, but finding the heart study and being part of the trial group was a moment where I thought, okay, this is different. Um, Something that I've always tried to keep in mind is that medical issues or medical ailments aren't linear. They don't go in a straight line. You often have two steps forward and one step back. And that's, as a result of the human body being complex and different treatment plans. But I think one of the things that I realized with the heart study was that it was an opportunity that fit your particular ailment. I think the people that were involved and what we were hearing from them was hopeful. And then seeing your reaction to that, right? Seeing someone that felt like this was a good opportunity and that they were willing to accept the risks and willing to participate to the requirements of the study was kind of a moment where I said, okay, there's something here. And I think as we got down the road, being involved in it and seeing how much preparation was involved and seeing how serious they were about trying to understand your particular case and what was unique in your situation, I think was one instance where I realized, okay, I think the tide is turning. And then the second would be after your actual procedure. Um, Although there's a period of recovery, I think there was a moment where seeing you just live your everyday life day to day, you could see that there was a marked improvement in certain areas. And so, um, for me, being your child, part caregiver, part along for the ride, that to me was really exciting to see you starting to feel better and being able to do things that you weren't able to do earlier in life. As far back as I can remember, you've been sick. So I just turned 33. That's 32, 33 some years of my memory of you being sick. And so to have walked into that situation where you have this incredible opportunity to be a patient, but also have a shot at being healthy and bettering your specific situation, to then watching you go through that and seeing the changes that you were experiencing in real time, to me was a moment of maybe this is it. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and this is something that's a little aside from what you asked, is that um, I don't think in my entire life I've seen you as healthy as you are now. In my 32, 33 years of living, um, I've never seen you be as physically active as you are now and to do as well day to day as you're doing now. And so for me, I've had to kind of change the that I think of your health through as a result of what's transpired over all of those years. And the last thing that I would add is that I'm incredibly proud of you. People have health issues that can suck the life out of them, that can drain them of their energy, their compassion, their empathy. It can make people very dogged and tired. And I think the one thing that I've seen you do throughout this entire process, you've never stopped fighting. I don't know anyone that can deal with something this serious for this many years and still have their head on their shoulders, still being able to fight, still wanting to fight, and then to get to the point where you're being told, "Hey, we have this new valve and we think it will help you." And then to get through that and live out what your hopes were. And I think that that takes not only a special type of person. I'm biased. You're my mother, and I love you. But I think that that takes a special type of person when you're faced with something that is this serious, that has gone on as long as this has gone on, and to be able to show up and do your best. I've never seen you give up throughout this. And again, I think that that takes a special type of person. Um, I've sat in doctor's appointments with you where they say how special you are and how much of a fighter you are. And I think that this journey and where you're at now has only co-signed that, that you really are one of a kind.
You got me crying over here.
I knew that would happen.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you, LB, for sharing all that. I love you and I appreciate you, not just for being here, but for showing up in life the way you do every day. I know someone's listening that needs to hear this. Conversations like this are exactly why we are showing up because these stories, these experiences, they all matter.
Absolutely. I would tell the people that are listening to this right now that maybe can't make sense of their situation or are struggling to make sense of it, don't give up, because despite what you're going through, despite what you've been through, and despite the hope or the chances of something being successful or the chances of something working, you just don't know the future. And if I've learned nothing else from this experience, and you both as my mother and as a patient, it's that if you keep fighting, you have a very real shot at winning. And again, I from my perspective as your child, but also a part-time caretaker, that has taught me that if you keep fighting, you're not giving in. And eventually, if you keep fighting, you'll eventually find a solution. And congratulations to you, Mom, for everything. All of these years that you've spent doing the most that you can and being as involved in your own care as you have been, it certainly has paid off.
Wow. That's a great way to end this segment. Thank you again, LB, for your time today. I love you.
I love you too, Mom. Thank you.
Hmm. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode of Heart to Heart Talk with Mary Burrell, where we speak from the heart for the heart. If today's conversation sparked something in you, a question, a revelation, or maybe even the courage to take the next step in your own heart health journey, don't keep it to yourself. Talk about it. Share your story. Start the conversation. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. Leave a review to help more people find these conversations and pass this episode along to someone who may need it. And if you're all ready to dive in deeper, join the conversation. Connect with me on social media or visit www.maryburrell.com for more resources, support, and ways to take action. Because when we speak up, we spark change, and the world needs to hear our voices. And remember, your heartbeat is more than just a rhythm, it's a message. What is yours saying?